you want us to present ourselves first?
Yeah. Tell us a bit about yourself and why you wrote what you would. Oliver, do you want to do first? You want to do first, Oliver?
Sure. So we're not supposed to stand, but I'm just going to do so to present myself, just because it's more direct to you, and then I think we'll have a conversation between ourselves, and you guys can listen and see if it's of any interest. So I'm Oliver Briscoe. I'm the Vice Chair of the Bristol University Conservative Association, Grown, but that's why I'm here. I'm the token Conservative, so I'm here to represent that, and in full suit to do so. But I just want to start off not only presenting myself like that, but just to say thank you to Cordelia and to the panel for turning up, because I think it's really important that we have these Sustainability Month didn't happen 5 years ago, at least when I started at Bristol, 3. And ever since then, I can say proudly as Conservative, we are so committed to the environment and to stopping climate change. We are so committed to tackling this issue. We're investing billions overseas. We are, we've got a most ambitious carbon neutral target for any country, and we are the 6th biggest economy in the world. So, really I'm proud to be here, not only to talk about this with all these diverse opinions, but to be here to represent the Conservative Party, or at least the Conservative, because we're not affiliated, and that's a legal caveat for the lawyers here, but we're not affiliated, but to represent the Conservative view, because I'm really proud of what this country has achieved. I'm proud of our record as Conservatives, but we're not complacent, and we must do so much better, and so I hope that with this talk, we can all kind of reflect and debate about what we can do to go forward. Thank you.
Hi, I'm James. I'm president of BUST, which is the Bristol University Sustainability Team. That's all you need to know about me.
You were at student council, right?
Sorry?
You were at
I was not. I did not go.
Okay.
I probably should have gone, because I probably could have voted in favour and we might have won. But I'm actually, so as I just said, I probably would have voted in favour because I have myself dabbled with veganism in the past. I'm not currently vegan, but I will try to get back to it. But I'm here to sort of shed some light on why people might reasonably argue against it, with some well-founded arguments. And yeah, so one of them being I think a switch to organic meat would be more realistic. But yeah, that's me.
Okay, Lauren?
Yeah, hi, I'm Lawrence. So I'm not at university at the moment. I graduated, but I went to the University of East Anglia, studied environmental science there, and then sort of became very disillusioned with just getting a degree and then going into a job and just working for myself. So I wanted to actually put the knowledge I gained to good use. So I've joined a couple of different groups / campaigns. You might have heard of them. One's Animal Rebellion, and the other one is, you probably haven't heard of it, it's called Food for Thought. It's just started up. And it's a campaign to try and promote universities to become plant-based. We've just started up, and we've got a couple of campaigns running around the country, and also in Hawaii and Italy as well. Yeah, that's me.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Beacham. I spent a few years up at Lancaster writing a PhD on food politics and getting thoroughly confused as to the answer of any kind of questions of what we should or should not do in the food system. So I'm based here now, here at Bristol, and been here for a few months, and pleased that there's lots of this kind of debate going on. I try in my own research to give a bit of a kind of bigger picture of what's going on in the food system and how that changes our everyday food kind of consumption practices. And I was thinking after Cordelia's kind of email and invite as to what I would vote in this thought experiment that we're forced to engage with. And my answer is I probably would vote yes to ban it, but also maybe not, depending on how I felt that day. Suitably confused, I think. I think the point being is, regardless of how I would have voted in those kind of ambiguities, this is now a really contested kind of terrain, and I think we're at a bit of a kind of global turning point in terms of our relationship with meat and dairy. worldwide, we have increased the production of meat from 71 million tonnes in 1961 to over 317 million tonnes by 2014, which to me is a fairly astonishing figure. At the same time, and as I was talking to my panellists before the start of this, there are now markets for alternatives to meat and dairy which have gone from about 4 billion in 2017, which will double in size if market research is correct, maybe even more than that in only a few years' time. So I'm very interested to hear the kind of thoughts that people have on this topic within those kind of wider patterns or changes in the food system and the many complex ways in which it shifts and transforms over time.
Okay, that's really interesting. So my next question, kind of leading on from that, would be, do you think that the animal agriculture industry is as bad for the environment as it's made out to be? And is veganism the answer? James?
No, not me first.
Okay. We'll go back to Jonathan. I think it leads on to what you're saying.
That's fine. So I think when we kind of dig into the figures or look at kind of what's going on here in terms of the environmental impact, one of the kind of provocative points is how on earth we actually kind of measure that in the first instance. So if we follow the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they estimate, and these things are always estimates because there's lots of uncertainty in these things, between 21 and 37% of all anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions come from animal-based agriculture. One of the problems of that is that greenhouse gases are not the kind of whole story in the long and complex and problematic story of climate change. So, for example, the use of fertilizers in agriculture, which is plant-based and animal-based, of course, has massively disrupted those biogeochemical flows of things like phosphorus and nitrogen in ways which would have been kind of, or in ways which are near enough unimaginable. I think to get back to the kind of levels of nitrogen in the atmosphere, you kind of have to go back to something like 2 billion years ago for an equivalent atmospheric state. So it's clear that what we're doing in terms of agriculture, which I appreciate goes beyond the terrain of animal agriculture alone, is massive, of massive significance to Earth science. Would veganism or a kind of plant-based diet solve this? I think there are certainly possible kind of reductions, but the question to me is a bit too kind of hypothetical, because I'm not seeing this kind of immediate transformation. Those trends of kind of global meat production and subsequently kind of dairy production continue to increase. So I'm not sure.
Alright, I'm going to get to Oliver. You look like you're
I think that's a very, very measured response, and there's a lot of things I want to pick up there. I mean, I think the first question is, what are we talking about? You know, we're talking about the animal agricultural industry, but equally we've got to think about the agriculture in itself. You know, plant-based diet, these plants don't materialise kind of out of anywhere without the same fertilisers and the same pollution that we get from meat. And, you know, what we have is undeniably the animal agricultural industry in its present form is unstable and is damaging. But so too is any other form of agricultural industry. I mean, I would rather have a Somerset steak from a cow, 20 miles that way in the national park than an out-of-season avocado flown all the way from Chile, right? I would rather eat that, and I'd rather have, and I think this will go to you at some point, is, local farmers, local herds, local dairy herds, cows which are reared organically, grass-fed, and local butchers too, and local abattoirs, because that's the other problem, right? It's not just about the food we eat, it's about how it gets to our plates. And most of you here in this room, and I don't want to make presumptions, but most of you have probably never been to an abattoir, never seen an animal killed. And it's not a very pleasant experience, but it's not particularly disturbing either, because that's what you have on your plate. And if you have to bring a cow from Scotland all the way down to kind of England to have it killed, to have it slaughtered, to meet the proper standards, the proper regulations, what you're doing is you're just adding to the problem. And what we've seen in the UK, for example, is since 2007 we've had a decline of a third of local abattoirs. A third. So instead of travelling, to your local butcher to kill your cow, instead of going to the local butcher to slaughter your pig, to have your meat prepared, to have every bit, not just the nice rump steak, but the whole animal prepared and skinned, for multiple uses, instead of having this local agricultural industry, this microcosm, which operates in a small area with minimal environmental impact from transport and from engagement of other third parties, what we have is a complete decrease. I mean, we've lost mobile abattoirs, for example. No, you don't go to a farm anymore to kill an animal. The animal has to travel outside the farm.
So what you're saying is the local industry is the answer?
Well, I'm not saying it's the only answer. I mean, I think what I'm saying is we've got an industry overall, an agricultural industry, whether that's meat or plant-based, which is problematically flawed in the way it operates. And what I'm saying is there is, like there is for plants, I'm sure, but there is definitely a way we can make the meat industry more environmentally friendly, more sustainable. But equally, and a practical example of this, for example, is quinoa, or quinoa, as some of you might prefer to pronounce it in Peru, or Pará, as some of you will also probably pronounce it. You have these overworked agricultural labourers in the hills of Peru, these overworked fields with fertilizer to produce an immense amount of plant-based diets. Basically, this is us ruining other countries for our first world pursuit to greenwash our dirty habits. This kind of virtue of I'm having quinoa, I'm having chickpeas, when they come miles a different continent, when you could get Welsh lamb cutlets or have a Sunday roast at your local pub.
So, leading on from that, can I just talk over to James? See what he thinks. What do you think is the answer?
So I think the main enemy is factory farms, because they are the ones which they produce loads of quality meat, but in terms of sort of land use and everything, and then the damage that made, so most of the fields which you see, which you go past, are all just growing grass or grain for these factory farms. So if we were to get rid of factory farms and go to more organic farming or more plant-based farming, there would be a lot more farmland available to, like for example, on the plant-based argument, sort of grow more stuff locally instead of shipping it abroad. And obviously there's different things like, we need the tropical weather and stuff, but we could definitely grow a lot more stuff here. But also organic meat, it uses a lot less land, but the animals themselves are they sort of have a much better welfare. Well, they definitely have a much better welfare.
So
but they're still,
why do you say they use less land? If we're talking about grass-fed organic farming, isn't that normally a larger land? So
it does, like on the face of it, I think it does. It seems like it uses more land because you think they're not all kept in like a factory or cage, and so they go out and do that. But I think the factory farms they shove so much food into the animals that they sort of use up so much. I'm not an expert on this, but I think that's right. I might be wrong.
I'll ask Lawrence.
Just a scientific point on that. It's also interesting when you talk about the fields. The way they farm cows, not smaller herds, is they move them around, and that gives the environment, the earth, a chance to regrow, to recuperate.
Okay.
Whereas battery farming, in large herds, don't. It completely destroys a field forever.
All right. Can I pass over to Lawrence next?
Yeah.
What do you think is the answer?
Sorry?
What do you think is the answer?
Yeah. I would advocate for switching to an entirely plant-based food system, and this is because a plant-based food system is massively more efficient for fundamental reasons, but also practical reasons than the food system we've got at the moment. And even if we switch to some of the proposed animal-based food systems like regenerative grazing, the plant-based food system will still be massively more efficient, even if we use our current methods of farming. So if I just go over at the moment, our food system at the moment that includes animals, it's massively inefficient, as I think everyone here agreed with the use of factory farms producing most of the animal products. As to whether the public perception is sort of proportional to how severe animal-based farming is on the environment, I would say it's getting there. It might not be quite there because I think there are still ways that animal agriculture impacts the environment that people might not be as aware of, like the fact that essentially half of the plastic in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is discarded fishing gear. So often people don't make the link between something like ocean plastic and animal farming or fishing. It's just something that it wouldn't make sense unless you knew that link there. Other things like obviously it's the leading cause of deforestation, species extinction. Obviously we talked a lot about climate change, not just climate change, but climate change is actually only the third biggest. It's the third leading threat to the environment at the moment. Direct exploitation and like clearing land or clearing natural habitat are the two leading at the moment. And animal agriculture is the leading cause of both of those. And as Jonathan said before, animal agriculture has like a significant impact on climate change as well, which is the third leading. So that's the state of play at the moment. If we switch to some of the proposed sort of like better systems, for instance, like regenerative grazing, it actually uses more land because obviously the animals in factory farms are fed grain, but that grain is a lot more calorie dense than things like grass. So you need a lot more grassland to feed any animals that graze. Also, you have to kill more animals in regenerative grazing because their muscles don't develop as much, because often regenerative grazing is organic as well. So the hormones